When you need someone to help you deny your quotes in a new book, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
And Jesse.
Oh, it has been a weekend. I was at Long Beach Comic-Con a couple days ago. And
what became of Long Beach Comic-Con?
Well, it's not a huge con. It's one of those things you can explore in a day. But it was still a pretty good day. I managed to meet some people from Knox Pro Wrestling. I didn't know they existed until I went there. They actually had a full wrestling ring set up in the exhibit hall and were wrestling each other like every 45 minutes.
Were you aware of this before you got there?
I was aware there was a company. I wasn't aware they were setting up a ring. I assumed it was a panel and it was going to be like a ballroom thing. I didn't think it was going to be on one side of the exhibit hall.
So did you make yourself known?
No. I was standing there in plain clothes, and even I still sit there and think, man, what I did can't be fracking real. And it was almost a shame, too, because they had a special thing where for $20, they would record your wrestler's entrance. They would let you download your own music, let you walk into the ring.
That's the best.
They would record the whole thing for you and post it to social media for you to download and stuff.
Nice.
And I was just standing there thinking, and of course, all my stuff is at the cleaners, and I'm probably better off for that. So, didn't get to humiliate myself that way. And at the same time, though, I got into a long conversation with Margaret Scott. She's been a writer on a few different series for different companies. She has said she's willing to come on the show after the conversation. Got into another conversation with an artist named Drew Johnson, and then we talked about comic books and politics and stuff for about an hour.
It's always a fun time to talk comic books with strangers. It's like a blank slate.
Well, we talked about a number of different issues all the way down through Comicsgate.
Oh, nice.
Comicsgate.
We got into the whole thing, and it was just fascinating to talk to him. But I did get signatures in my giant book by Margaret Scott and Christopher Priest.
Sweet.
So, and new media contact with Top Cow Comics. I made friends with a new independent comic creator at Sharon Comics. It was pretty good one day.
That was all
Look at
one day. That's
you.
impressive.
That was all one day. And
You name-dropping fool.
I was just going through what I did, man. It's all up there in the review right now on dvsgaming.org. How are you guys doing?
Should I go or should I go, Joe? Joe, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
You can go. That's fine.
I'm gonna go.
You're already talking. Just get going.
I will allow it.
Oh, thank you, Joanna. You're so gracious.
Hey, when she gives permission, she gives permission.
I spent this weekend exposing myself. See, Jeremy, I'm
Whoa!
giving you an in on this one.
Hold up.
Giving you an
What?
in.
Whoa!
Been exposing
Did you get
myself.
arrested?
No. I've been exposing myself to Iron Fist season 2,
Oh, thank God. I thought for a second I needed an adult to stay in here.
and let me tell you that Iron Fist season 2 is so much better than Iron Fist
Yes.
season 1, and I'm gonna say it now, is also better than Luke Cage season 2.
Okay.
Whoa. I need you
Yeah.
to recant that statement right now.
Wow.
Nope. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Luke Cage season 2 put me to sleep so many times.
What?
You are interfering with Joanna's jungle fever here, man.
I mean,
Okay, aside from Bushmaster, the villains weren't believable. I mean, the forced romance between the guy from Sons of Anarchy and Miss Stokes, they had no chemistry. They had zero chemistry. It looked like
Yeah.
a history teacher flirting with one of her students.
I think that was kind
Yeah.
of the point.
it was
Yeah.
painful to watch. I'm gonna agree with that point. However, I love me some Luke Cage. The
Well, no,
the
okay.
writing is good. The characters are good, and I'm not just talking about actor. Before you start, this is not an eye candy situation. No.
Well, I will
Yes.
say that everything that has to do with the Luke Cage actor himself was great. When he was on screen, it was great. When you had to dig through the minutia of all these supporting characters eating up scenery, and bored. I was bored with Luke Cage's father, and I feel bad because I know that actor passed away recently. I was bored with him. I was bored with the many support characters who would change allegiances. I'm like, okay, I thought you were Miss Stokes' bodyguard. Now you're not. And I was just to give a shit how? Okay, moving on. It just, aside from everything that involved Bushmaster, he was cool. The massacre at the diner, that was eye-opening, and
Yep.
that was real. That felt hard. Everything else really, actually, I mean, literally put me to sleep. I mean,
Wow.
like I had to wake up at my desk with drool coming out of my mouth, kind of sleep.
Ew.
It is amazing listening to two nerds argue over anything because it turns into an audio shotgun wedding. You know,
Yeah.
one person opens
And-
their mouth and somebody produces a shotgun. Y'all better take that back.
And I think I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna double down and say that the best episode of Luke Cage was when Danny was in it.
You know, I was glad that he doesn't seem, and I want to say this as delicately as possible, he doesn't seem like he's constipated anymore, because the entire first season of Iron Fist I had to power through because it was so boring, and the other characters
Oh God,
carried it.
It
This
really
guy's
was.
acting was so stiff and so bland.
I
His
thought it was
fighting was
okay.
really poor.
I thought
But-
it was
Oh,
okay
yeah.
for the first 3 episodes, and it went to what the fuck town.
Yeah.
The character whined a little, and his fighting
A
style
little?
was very.
A little.
That was his whole where, by the way, I'm the immortal Iron Fist man.
God, that really was the catchphrase. That was the meme of that season. I am.
Yes, the
immortal.
immortal Iron Fist. Like, can't you just
Thankfully-
introduce yourself as Danny Rand, for crying out loud?
Thankfully, in 6 episodes, because I'm in 6 episodes right now, he's only said "I am the Iron Fist" like twice,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay. So
but,
what else is
moving
happening?
on.
Because this is a rabbit
Yes.
hole that's getting deep, and I've already been passed by 3 playing cards. So
Yeah. Moving on,
Okay.
I have reintroduced myself to Champions Online, finding out that they've improved themselves over the 9 years I've avoided them. Being a City of Heroes expatriate like Jeremy here, my standards for superhero MMOs were high. So coming into Champions, I'm like, this is going to be garbage.
expatriate,
But,
I think you overestimate me. I'm more of a Morlock in that town.
But Champions has come a fucking long way. I mean, it really feels like City of Heroes more than I thought it was going to. So I think I'm all in on that.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for City of Titans to produce, but that's a personal thing. Joanna, what else is going on for you?
Not really much. Job hunting still, and
Okay.
getting caught up on my reading. I actually had probably like a 3-inch stack of comics that I had to read through that I've collected and just haven't had time.
Oh,
So that's nice.
oh my God! That would be my perfect afternoon, just flipping through stuff that's been left on a table for a while.
Yeah,
A stack of comics is a nice thing.
very nice.
Jesse, what's going on with you?
I was working non-stop still since our Flake left.
Oh, okay.
So other than that, sleeping, eating, crapping, and barely any time to do anything else.
Please tell me you're not doing that at the same time.
In the same place.
I'm not gonna answer.
Oh my God, he is! Dude.
Ew.
Your hyperbole has given me pause.
Oh my
I
God.
don't think this world is ready for me anymore.
Oh.
Moving right along.
Well, the subject of this week is book 1 of Preacher by Vertigo Comics, an offshoot of DC. We'll get to that after the news of the week, and first up is Marvel Comic News, where we talk about the latest things from the properties owned by the House of Mouse and what storylines they have upcoming. Actually, it's a little bit of an interesting one on the first story here, because Marvel has revealed that they apparently have some very nutty plans for the Guardians of the Galaxy in early 2019.
No, I thought you were going to mention the fact that I think they're trying to off yet another Guardian in this whole Infinite Gauntlet thing on.
Well, I think that's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point. The question now is who's going to be a Guardian in 2019. We have seen the teasers that involve some 35 characters, including the current Guardians, original Guardians, future Guardians, offshoot Guardians, and characters that have never even been Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
The new series is going to be written by Donny Cates. The art will be by Jeff Shaw. They're relaunching the series with a new lineup. And according to Cates himself, quote, Jeff and I have some insane plans for our first Guardians arc. The arc is called Endgame. And as seen in Thanos' Legacy, it begins with a reading of Thanos' last will and testament. An artifact that Thanos' brother Eros dug out of his late brother's heart, which very well may spell doom for the entire universe. What Horde secrets are contained inside the will of the Titan? Find out this January, and, oh yeah, our new lineup. Well, that's going to be a surprise as well. Use the hashtag WhoAreTheGuardians online, and maybe we'll give out some teases as we get closer. See y'all in space, unquote.
Wow, they're dusting off Star Fox for this.
Yes,
Yeah.
Star-
You know,
please, go. Go.
Well, I mean, in light of the current climate, I think that Star Fox is a character that Marvel really should best leave tucked away somewhere and not really pull out too often.
Yeah, I flipped
But
through
nostalgia.
the. No, nostalgia only gets you so far. Nostalgia will get you a 1940s Captain Marvel comic with his best black friend there, who doesn't belong in comics anymore.
Yeah, but when your power is to make other people fall in love with you and then take it the next level, you're slowly becoming a little out of date with the times.
That's fair.
I did flip through the issue of Thanos Legacy where Eros did dig the item out of Thanos' body, and yeah, they're only referring to him as Eros, not Star Fox, so it does look like they are somewhat cognizant of the legacy of Star Fox and what that could mean. It also involved the Cosmic Ghost Rider, who also was there when Eros was digging through the body and then urinated a stream of fire on him, so whatever.
Yeah, Cosmic Ghost Rider really has turned into a comedy book, hasn't it?
I think it's kind of picked up the wacky that Deadpool is left behind in the dust while they're trying to reestablish the character. And I'm not very clear if Cosmic Ghost Rider is going to be part of the Marvel Universe going forward, even though he does seem to be time-hopping a little bit currently. He was used in the teaser of one of the potential new Guardians of the Galaxy.
I wish I had something to say on that, but honestly, I don't really know the real scope of his powers.
Well, you know who he is, right?
Yes, I know who he is.
Okay. So, yeah, it's Frank Castle, the former Punisher, who was imbued with the powers of a Ghost Rider after he died, who was then imbued with the powers cosmic by Galactus as his new herald. And then,
that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and then when Galactus was killed, he really couldn't figure out what to do, so he started following around Thanos instead. And I figure that the Cosmic Ghost Rider has to have an insane amount of power, considering the chain he uses is made out of the bones of an indestructible entity in Marvel Comics known as Sidorak.
Yeah, he might be a little overpowered to be in a Guardians book.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he wouldn't be involved in a Guardians book. I wouldn't expect him to be a member of the team necessarily.
I always get a little concerned when they put somebody extraordinarily powerful into a team, because honestly, the whole storyline seemed to center around them. And that's why actually one of the main reasons I loathed with a capital L Sentry.
I actually like the Sentry character because as powerful as he was, he also had some insane flaws to him. But
he wrecked the storylines he was in with the Avengers.
No, I think he added a flavor to him because you could never quite tell how he was going to respond to anything, really. But
you're not going to make me unhate him.
Okay, fine. Put it on record that Casey is a hater. Moving on.
Moving on.
Actually, the one character I would like to see as a Guardian that was in the teaser is Howard the Duck.
Okay, I'll back that up. Howard needs some light. Yeah.
He could use a little exposure, and it's not like he couldn't hold his own as a master of quack fu, and I did not make that up.
Yeah, and he was more of a political statement in the 70s, and I think that Howard really could make the same kind of political statements in the, I don't know, what are we calling this now, the teens?
Yeah, the teens. It's not like his presence would be unknown. He has been featured in the 3rd issue of Cosmic Ghost Rider as the Juggerduck.
Oh my gosh, these puns are horrible.
It's not a pun. That's the name of the character, the Juggerduck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the 70s, he had a suit of armor that springs on the feet, and he was the Iron Duck.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm
Feel
not
bad.
a Howard the Duck fan to begin with, but this is ridiculous. I think I'll pass on that one.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Well,
He's an acquired taste.
Marvel has recently brought back one of their major X-Men villains with a bit of a twist.
What?
What do you mean, what? I thought you'd be up on this more than anybody. This was featured in the latest issue of Weapon X, number 23, by Greg Pak, Fred Van Lente.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm giving you an in.
Okay. They have brought back the leader of the Puritan force, William Stryker, as a cyborg.
Yeah. Well, they're uncertain if he is a cyborg, because when Sabretooth got on him, he was like taking off. It's like, well, you know, cyborgs at least have human flesh, not this rubbery stuff, taking the stuff off his face, and they at least have a brain when he takes off the back end, and it's just like a pink computer. So there was some argument about what exactly he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that was a brain in the case. I thought he was a cyborg in the RoboCop sense.
Or
No,
Android.
no, that whole thing is basically that whatever that thing is, it thinks it's Stryker.
Could be Android.
Oh, it could very well be. Machine Man has been wonderful so far.
Oh my God, have you seen Machine Man lately?
Yeah, I've been reading
Nope.
Tony Stark Iron Man.
Oh my God, he's just cast as machine supremacist boyfriend. I know.
Ex-boyfriend now.
Is it?
Oh
Oh,
God, by I think the fourth issue, she dumped him.
yeah. I don't know if he was a machine supremacist. I think he was a machine rights advocate.
Uh, Specifically, artificial intelligence rights. That's become a new
Yeah.
thing with Stark going forward. Is he's trying to be very cognizant of not enslaving AIs. He's trying to actually work with them.
Yeah, and the Machine Man gave him crap for wearing armor that made him look like a robot, and Stark's like, "I'm not a robot; it's armor."
Wow.
That's manist.
Yeah,
That is splitting hairs.
It is. It's like the argument about what constitutes blackface. And, when people respond with anything that colored your skin is blackface, it's like, no, usually blackface involves you dancing around singing it's the first of the month and stuff like that.
Ah, the poor
Yeah.
Drow elf cosplayers hearing
Yeah.
that one.
People forget that there's a cultural connotation to blackface. It's not just a simple act of putting on makeup.
Right.
There is a new Spider-Man series coming that is an old Spider-Man series that is not technically Spider-Man.
I'm
What?
super fucking stoked about this. I just want to say that right now.
I think I just made Joanna blow a circuit with that kind of dancing.
I'm out of the web loop, so put
Well,
me in.
more or less, they're going back to the roots of a certain character, and they're bringing back the series of the Superior Spider-Man. Casey, why don't
Yep.
you explain it since you're having a joygasm over there?
Yes. There's a one shot coming out called Superior Octopus. This is basically Doc Ock is still wearing his Avengers Hydra costume, which looks really cool, I might say. But he feels the need to still prove that he is the better hero. I think something about him going overseas or away from New York, and he finds himself in a situation where he sees an opportunity to prove that he has always been the better Spider-Man. So he's going back to the superior Spider-Man costume and look for an ongoing series.
Actually, Casey, he's going to the venue that Marvel often sends their heroes when they're looking to change their circumstance and reinvent themselves.
California?
San Francisco.
I knew it.
He's going to be hiding under an assumed name of Elliot Tolliver, and he's going to be a professor at Horizon University.
Oh wow. Okay. I'm all
Seems a
see.
little
I'm
blasé.
man. Superior Spider-Man was so good. The costume design was so good. I mean, I hated the fact that Peter was unknowingly, well, Peter/Otto was unknowingly ruining a lot of his friendships.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, so much so that Black Cat, I mean, has only recently started to forgive the shit beating that she got from Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, the series is going to be illustrated by Mike Hawthorne, but more importantly to certain people in the room, it's being written by Christos Gage.
Oh, very cool. Did he write the original?
I don't know if he wrote the original. I bring him up because Christos Gage is the one who wrote Buffy Season 8 for Dark Horse Comics.
Yes.
He's written
absolutely.
a number of the Buffy comic books, including the ones we reviewed on the show.
Yeah.
According to Gage himself on Marvel.com, quote, I had the great pleasure of collaborating with Dan Slott on his incredible Superior Spider-Man run, and I can't wait for people to see this new chapter in Otto's journey toward redemption, corruption, triumph, tragedy. That remains to be seen. What I can tell you is the appropriately superior artistic team of Mike Hawthorne, Wade Van Grawbadger, and Jordi Belair, titans of their field all, are absolutely killing it on the art, unquote.
Well, I like this, and that's because I'm largely a fan of redemption stories, and they were kind of going that way with Otto on the Superior Spider-Man in the later issues, even to the point where he actually outright sacrifices himself when he recognizes that Peter is the better man. I was like, you can't erase that kind of development. So if they're going to go that route and give him an opportunity, redemption, and still carry out that storyline, I'm on board.
I was about to say, they did do it by killing that version of him and then leaving another version behind pre-sacrifice.
Well, I'd just say that development in general. I know that particular character is gone in kind of a way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the potential is there.
And Charles Soule is also staying busy with multiple series in Marvel. He's actually teasing something big coming for Matt Murdock.
Really?
Yeah, Soule is apparently running his own newsletter, and within it, he said, quote, I realize I haven't written much about my Marvel work, but there's a lot of interesting stuff coming up in that world, too. A big announcement should hit soon about Daredevil, and not just the incredible news that they put a character named Samuel Chung, created by me and Ron Garney in our Daredevil run as Matt Murdock's apprentice, in the upcoming Iron Fist Season 2 show on Netflix.
Oh, Blindside?
Yep. That is
I
a
haven't
Daredevil
run into
protege.
him. Oh,
That's a Daredevil protege
yes.
in the comics.
Okay, I'm on episode 6. Is he that gang member that Colleen Wing has kind of befriended?
I believe so, but I haven't gotten terribly deep in the series. I'm trying to finish the current season of Ozark before I take on something new.
Oh, okay.
He continued, quote, "The whirlwind adventure of the fall ends here. In an oversized, overwhelming Daredevil epic as only Charles Soule and Phil Noto could deliver it. Face forward, true believers. This one will have you talking for months," unquote.
I remain unimpressed.
Well, Soule's been writing the story of Daredevil since the 8-month time jump post-Secret Wars, and that was a few years ago.
It's been a long time since Daredevil's really flipped my lid. I think the last time I seriously read it was during Shadowland.
I stopped a while after Shadowland. I didn't quite feel that one, but I did enjoy the recent issues involving Matt Murdock as the deputy mayor of New York under Wilson Fisk. Man, that is some next level comic book story typing.
Has Bullseye been back lately?
I didn't see him in the particular story. What I read was Wilson Fisk trying to help the city. Oh no, Wilson Fisk was arrested, so Daredevil was now the mayor of New York in his alter ego, and at the same time he was trying to repel an invasion by the Hand.
Of course he was.
Yeah, because goodness knows, when you got Daredevil, you got ninjas.
Got tons of ninjas.
Almost as many as G.I. Joe has.
Ah, the ninjas of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, a toy accident. That's a hilarious story in and of itself.
Yes.
Oh God, they did have an unfortunate run of ninjas everywhere in G.I. Joe. The whole multicolored ones, like the blue ninja.
No, I don't mean that. I mean their very first ninja action figure, and Jesse knows this. I showed him the documentary.
Yep.
He was not a purposeful character. He was just a blank they put out because they needed someone to fill out their roster of like 13 original toys.
And
Oh yeah,
it's
Snake
somebody
Eyes. They didn't put any paint on him.
Yeah,
And it's also a cost-cutting measure as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't meant to be anything. He was just sort of a throwaway character. He just turned out to be their best seller.
Larry Hama is still one of my writing legends. I love him for bringing me the G.I. Joe that I had.
Last up in Marvel comic news, it turns out Thor is about to have a heavyweight fight on his hand in his new series. As of issue 5, it's going to be a fight between Old Man Thor, the version of him that is king of Asgard and the new god of New Earth, well past, I guess, the Ragnarok of the original. And he gets to throw down with the Wolverine Phoenix.
What?
Ridiculous.
Jesse, I guess you're not aware of this. In the latest series, they've indicated that the last survivor of the original Earth is Wolverine, who has the Phoenix Force.
And it's just as ridiculous as you think it is.
Is that the reason why he's got those laser claws?
They still haven't determined what is making Wolverine's claws heat up in the regular series. I just know what the story is on this one. You know, this one has been long enough that Thor's been keeping Jane Foster alive through some kind of magical serum, and she just recently stopped taking it. He has 3, I think, granddaughters at this point, who all wield different weapons, and like they call themselves the Goddesses of Thunder. And he's just trying to rule over what's left of the universe as it's slowly dying.
You know, I said this in a previous episode when we were reviewing it, but I'm glad they did not kill off Jane Foster.
Me too.
Yeah, I was glad they kept the character. I still lament the loss of her Thor, though. I liked her. I like her a lot more than the Odin son.
No, I speaking of secondary Thors, I hear they've been crapping on Thunderstrike recently.
Not crapping on him. They've made him one of the stars of the Asgardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, but I saw, like, they were introducing us, like, yeah, we've got a god, a murderer, and Thunderstrike. Hey!
What was it? I actually put that issue as my pick of the week last week, and yeah, there was a panel where a human was looking through everything, and she just said, yeah, we have an assassin, a traitor, a frog, and Thunderstrike. Hey!
And it's not Eric Masterson, right? It's his son?
It's his son, yeah. His son, when he picks up Eric Masterson's old mace, you know how those things have transformative properties? Well, he makes himself into an adult.
Oh, man, are we having a Billy Batson moment with that?
Yeah, but Thunderstrike has gone through a little bit of a growing period. He had a mini-series where when he first picked it up, he made himself like this punk thrasher kind of alter ego so nobody would recognize him, and then I forget what he had. He had his come to God moment. Not a pun I intended, but there it is. And he's using it as a chance to follow in his father's footsteps and actually make a legacy for Thunderstrike.
Okay.
You know, it's not the worst story, and I'm giving the character a chance. I mean, I know the character is way lamented in Marvel Comics because he's not the Odin son, but I've heard stuff like that before.
Yeah, I didn't hate him.
You know, if he had one fault during his run as a hero, it was the beard. The beard was a bit much.
The beard was okay. I think it was the jacket that we could have lost.
Well, all the Avengers had that.
I know.
Moving into DC Comics, or DC Comic News, I should say. This is where we talk about the properties owned by AT&T and what they're producing in comic books now and in the near future. Tom King is teasing a future Batman project with his current co-creator on the... What is he working on? Mr. Miracle, Mitch Gerads. He said recently online, quote, "Damn it, I've got this perfect idea for a gritty Batman detective story, but I need just the right artist to do it. Who could? Where could I find?" Looking around. "Wait a second! Mitch Gerads!" Unquote.
Who's Mitch Gerard?
He's the guy who's doing the art right now in the Mr. Miracle maxi series.
Oh, yeah. Strangely enough, I bought a couple issues. I just never got around to reading them.
I'm not saying it's badly written. I just don't think it's come together. You know, I read 6 issues out of the 12, and I didn't really come away as a fan of Mr. Miracle at all. I didn't think much of the story. If anything, it made me more of a fan of Big Barda.
Yeah, see, that's the reason why I got it, is for Big Bart. I didn't give a crap about Mr. Miracle.
Yeah, she came across really well. Mr. Miracle, his storyline was a little muddled.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Barda too.
Oh, I know you are.
You know.
Yeah, she could probably hand Diana's ass to her. I would like to see that fight.
And she's taller than Diana.
Height isn't everything, okay?
Yeah, but she's like a tower of majesty.
She's like Titan strength. Yeah.
I have no idea where you guys are going with this. I feel like you're filling out your Tinder profiles or something.
Well, it's very rare for a 6'4" woman to be a hero in comic books of any kind of consistency.
I wish I was 6'4". I'm stuck at 5'11".
A 5'11" is a fine height, looking at myself.
Yes, it is.
Well,
I married someone at 5'11".
Is Karen really 5'11"?
Yeah, I'm 5'7". It's always funny when people ask me, "So what's it like marrying a tall woman?" I just look at them right in the eye and say, "Yeah, I like to climb."
Oh, God. I actually thought you were 5'8", but then again, I've actually never seen you in the flesh.
Depending on who measures me, it's 5'8" or 5'7". I don't feel the need to tell myself I'm taller than I am, so I just say 5'7".
don't slouch. It helps.
You know? Moving on, though, before we start talking about my inadequacies, 24-hour Comic Day is a month away. What is 24-hour Comic Day? I'm not familiar with this concept.
I'm not familiar with this concept either. I know Free Comic Book Day, but that's in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, something called something is selling DIY comics for creative collaboration. DC is planning on offering official DC Universe logos for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They will also be providing blank comics for you to give your comics a fan-created look.
Oh, yes. Okay, I do know about these. These are the white books they're comic book shaped, but they're completely blank.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're regular edition comic books with 100% blank covers. People tend to take them to conventions and get artists to draw on them, and
No, these have blank pages in them.
Oh, blank pages. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I wasn't aware that's what was going on here. According to the press release by DC, quote, "Want to be the next Jim Lee? Get your start in comic art with a Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman blank comics featuring uncoated 80-pound paper, the same stock used for DC's blank variant covers. The Blank Comics initiative is tied to the celebration of 24-Hour Comics Day, October 3rd, 2018. The goal is to tell a 24-page story in 24 hours and then share these stories with one another to inspire and motivate others to create stories. To share the love of
a brilliant idea.
To share the love of the craft is what creating comic books is all about." Unquote.
Cool.
I didn't mean to cut you off there. I thought you were actually coming to the end of your sentence there.
No, I was just taking a breath. 24
I
hour.
think it's a great idea.
The original 24-hour Comic Day was organized in 2004 by Peanuts veteran Nat Gertler. The objective was to create a 24-page comic book story in 24 hours straight. I've never heard of this holiday before. I'm surprised it goes back that far.
Me either.
When is this occurring?
This is October 3rd. DC's blank comics are going to retail for $2.99 starting October 3rd.
I know just who I'm going to give that to. And
So-
I'm not going to say it because that's name dropping.
Yeah, so you got to go purchase the comic books and bring it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Snyder is dishing a little bit more on some of the mysteries regarding the Justice League he's been producing in the recent series. Wow. According to Scott Snyder, so far in the Justice League, he's introduced the invisible emotional spectrum, the counterpoint to the things that ring slingers use, the still force, the opposite of the speed force, and he's also going to bring in things that are the flip side to Wonder Woman's force of divinity and Aquaman's force of life and evolution. I'm getting kind of tired of all these just opposite forces of DC's powers being brought in.
Yep.
And I'm
Seems
trying
to be the only new ideas they have, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be as constructive as I can about it, and I know a lot of the most popular villains in comics tend to be very much like the heroes, just polar differences as far as alignments. But just the idea that somebody comes in with an opposite power shouldn't automatically make them the ultimate villain to a particular hero.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if this ultraviolet ring thing isn't just a single story ploy or just an excuse to get Sinestro back into his old colors.
I'm not entirely sure. Apparently, they're going to examine the Legion of Doom in an issue upcoming by James Tynion IV and Mikkel Janin before Snyder and Jimenez continue to take Francis Manapul in the series toward a crossover event with Aquaman called Drowned Earth. I have no problem with Snyder's artistic concepts. I'm just not sure he's the writer to carry him through. I think his ideas in, like, No Justice and Metal are good ideas. I don't think he can bring himself to get these concepts all the way through to the end zone.
That's what it felt like, and I'm saying this because I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, and I love all the different cores that John's brought in. So when I heard about the Ultraviolet, I'm not typically a cynic when it comes to new stuff. So when I heard the Ultraviolet, I was like, hey, cool, new ring. Let's see where this goes. It went nowhere.
Yeah.
It had no real purpose. I mean, the symbol looked like a magnifying glass. And on top of that, it really did feel like it was just an excuse to get Sinestro in his old colors. So much so that the symbol that John Stewart was wearing was not on Sinestro's outfit.
Huh. Well, I may have to read it eventually. It's just not high on my priority list given what I've seen so far.
I read some odd-numbered issues, the ones that really focused on the Ultraviolet thing, 'cause that's the only thing I gave a crap about, and it was a yawn fest.
Okay.
Oh, man.
I read issues 1 and 2. I think I stopped just before the Ultraviolet.
I got into like 7.
Okay. Well, we know that Lois Lane in the DC Universe is currently hiding out in Chicago under a pseudonym and writing a book for some reason. I've been racking my head trying to figure out why she'd be hiding from her superpowered husband. Did she father Bruce Wayne's baby or something? I have no clue. But it turns out that recently Bendis has hinted as to why she's been hiding, and she's going to be apparently sharing a bit more information in DC Nation number 4. According to Bendis, quote, Lois Lane has, through her work, discovered some secrets about the DC Universe she doesn't know what to do with. She doesn't even know if telling Clark is the right thing to do, not from a trust point of view, but because the information might be that dangerous. This has altered her behavior, unquote.
So why would publishing a book make her safe?
Not entirely sure about that myself. I mean,
Yeah.
Bendis has a habit of taking an entire sandbox and just shaking it, turning it upside down, and finding new things that no one's ever really thought about before. I mean, this is the guy that basically took some of Marvel's best and brightest and created a new Avengers lineup that people actually started to read after the character's been stodgy for almost a decade.
Talking about the new Avengers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
He brought back Spider-Woman. For
Yeah.
that alone, he is blessed.
I mean, I guess the best way to describe Bendis is his payoff isn't always immediate. Sometimes it takes some build up to see where he's going. I mean, he spent a good, 6 issues putting the Avengers through the ringer before he even started to bring up the idea of a new roster.
And he seeded Secret Invasion over 3 or 4 years.
He's definitely a long-term thinker. Have you guys followed what's going on with the solicits for Nightwing, Batman's first
Yes.
Batman's first
I
protege
did
there?
not.
Apparently he is encountered a grievous injury to his head.
I don't know if that's happened already. I think there's an upcoming issue in October, Nightwing 50. It's going to kick off the storyline where Nightwing is going to take a terrible blow to the skull that's going to be life-altering, as they put it.
Yeah.
DC Comics has teased the upcoming issue, saying that some scars run deeper than others. They've teased an image online via their Twitter that shows that Nightwing will have a Nightwing symbol-shaped scar in his head. And I mean, this thing looks savage. Like somebody hit him with something pointed, and his skull was just barely enough to stop it from sinking into brain.
I wonder if he'll do what Barbara went through, because I remember when Barbara took her injury and she was recovering, that he was helping her along.
I can't say for sure. Recent storylines have indicated that the two characters do love each other, but maybe not in a romantic way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say for sure, because DC's writing of relationships has always been kind of frustrating to me. It's like...
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Nightwing especially, when he has relationships, he seems to have almost simultaneous relationships with three characters that never seem serious enough to go anywhere somehow.
And sometimes it can vary depending on who's writing or which book he's in at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, the other difference here is, though, while his injury is debilitating, it's not quite as bad as what Barbara Gordon had to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't able to use her legs for 30 years.
But Gail Simone turned that into something beautiful. Gail, please come on the show.
Right.
But I sent you
wish.
guys the image in the Skype chat real quick of the injury that's supposed to be on the cover of Nightwing, an upcoming issue of Nightwing, I think number 53, and it does look like it. That's the type of thing that will make you forget how to play the piano.
Mm-hmm.
So an injury like
Yeah.
that, I mean, I don't know if that haircut is going to be permanent. I'd almost like it if it was at this
Ouch.
point. Hey, this could be the kind of compelling story that would actually bring me into a member of the Bat family. I mean, going through that kind of injury and still trying to deal with it is just beyond traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I would wonder if it'd make him a little bit gun-shy about swinging from gargoyles after something like that.
Possibly.
I would think that has to affect your balance.
Any indication whether or not old scars would be like old issues with Batman?
Potentially. I know that his relationships have been very strained since his whole missed marriage with Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he seems to be going through that in phases. What was it? Recently, Talia al Ghul had floated the notion that Deathstroke is the father of Damian Wayne, not him. I know that Nightwing has not been very close to him since he got engaged, even though he supported the whole thing. And, of course, we all know about the recent storyline where, Bruce Wayne over-battered Mr. Freeze while investigating crimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this may be just another step in the road, unfortunately.
Right. Well, they've had a strained relationship for a couple of years now in the comics, anyway.
Well, I don't think it's as bad as the current relationship between Batman and the Red Hood, for sure.
That's fair.
Yeah. Speaking of covers to the Bat family, Stanley Lau is back with a variant cover to an upcoming issue of Catwoman, a Halloween-themed variant. He says it holds a number of Halloween Easter eggs. I admit, I got lost looking for the Easter eggs just staring at this image, man. There is a lot going on here. If it wasn't for his painted style, I'd say he should do more comic books in general, but I have a feeling his version of art would be a pain in the ass waiting for him to do 22 pages.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah. Actually, there are a couple of Easter eggs here, not to mention the leather thong around the engagement ring that looks a little bit like her whip, and I just noticed the cat in her glove there.
Mm-hmm.
I just picked that up looking at this image. Man, I can see why some of his variants go for like $20 the day they're out.
Yeah, it's gorgeous art.
Mm-hmm. He's fun to talk to as well. I've run into him in the last couple of Comic-Cons. It's hard to get to his booth.
Mm-hmm.
He stays busy. There is a mystery going on in Teen Titans, though, I haven't been the most compelled about, but I may get more into it now. They may be... Well, as of DC Nation number 4, editor Alex Anton teased that they're going to start to reveal clues about the mother of Crush.
I have no idea who Crush is.
Nope.
Crush is the illegitimate daughter of Lobo.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she's currently on the roster of the Teen Titans under Damian Wayne. She was apparently...
I guess,
Okay.
yeah. I don't read Teen Titans. I guess it's
I
obvious
don't
now.
either.
Yeah. She was apparently raised in a cosmic orphanage. She came to Earth and agreed to help the heroes if they can help her solve some mysteries of her own that she still hasn't quite divulged yet. She really doesn't seem to know much about either of her parents at this point. Although if you take a look at her, the fact that she's related to a Zarnian is pretty evident. You guys really are not aware of this character? I've been staring at her in solicits for a while.
I have
It
not
has never
followed Teen
occurred.
Titans ever.
You know, I'm not against new characters being sons or daughters of anybody, but when they're introduced and that appears to be their only storyline, I'm just a little bit skeptic, is my problem.
Same here.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, she definitely looks like him.
Yeah. She,
An attitude on the face too.
she's dressed vaguely like him with a bit teen punk going on in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Lobo was a good villain. I kind of liked him as a villain.
Oh, the original Lobo was fine. The new 52 Lobo, that wasn't the greatest concept.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the new 52.
So you don't know what that looked like, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
He was kind of a lithe, scrawny little dude.
Yeah,
They were trying to
What?
pass him off
Pretty
as
boy.
the quote-unquote true Lobo.
yeah,
but
he was
Ew.
less of a bounty hunter and more of an assassin.
Lame.
He used a lot of the same words, but nowhere near as much ferocity. And Casey's right. When they introduced him, they tried to introduce him as the true Lobo by having him murder the other guy who apparently admitted that he was not the real Lobo. Then, sometime around Rebirth, that all just kind of went away.
Yeah, there was no humor in his book whatsoever.
Yeah, we're just gonna pretend like that never happened. We do that
Yep.
sometimes in fandoms.
I didn't know you wrote for DC.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could though. Just kidding. Everyone woke up and it was a bad dream. Or everyone's dead. I could write for Lost.
Does this mean that Secret Six will come back?
Oh,
No.
what? No.
No,
I
no,
said writer,
forever.
not dreaming. Okay. What are people's opinions on Grant Morrison?
I think he is a good writer sometimes.
He's working on something called Green Lantern Season 2. I wasn't aware he'd been working on Green Lantern lately.
Me either.
They were talking about the fact that he came on as the new Green Lantern writer, but I didn't know he'd already started yet.
So he's just continuing the current book. Okay, maybe it's just his choice
Yeah.
of words here. Because he teased in the recent DC Nation, man, all this information is coming out of the same like anthology book, that he's working on what he calls Green Lantern's second season. And he said he couldn't help himself and added, quote, "But we'll wait and see. We're just starting out because once I start thinking about stories, the stories put out roots and they won't stop growing. I've got a ton of great ideas for the next bunch, but I think the important thing is to get through this lot, and we've already got some big ideas for this, so I think people will be interested to see," unquote. Apparently his series is going to be called The Green Lantern, and the first issue is set to be released later this year, but there's no definitive date as of yet.
Is it?
Yeah,
You
he's
think Green Lantern season 2 is that?
Maybe he just means his story is the second season of, the Rebirth version of Green Lantern. Somebody else started it, and he gets to take over from here, and here's the great second arc of the Green Lantern's tales, as he thinks, I guess.
The only thing that came to my mind when season 2 came out was for the anime series way back when.
Yeah, you
Okay.
wish.
He is, from what I understand, hit and miss. I don't know. I think that the Planet X storyline that he did for X-Men way back in the early 2000s was a misstep.
I think of Morrison kind of like the opposite of Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder has high artistic concepts but doesn't know how to carry them through. Grant Morrison really can write a good tale from point A to point B, but I don't know, he thinks so eccentrically. I don't think he often tells his story very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't he do the Authority, the original run?
No, I think that was Ellis.
You're right. He picked up on the reboot. Okay.
Yeah. And Ellis is the one who's currently writing the Wildstorm right now, I think.
Damn, I really wish they would go back to old school Authority. That was so good.
Well, they are rebuilding the Authority in the current Wildstorm stuff, but now that that's on hold, we're going to have to wait a while to see the payoff.
Well, for the Authority to truly shine, number one, it needs to be practically an R-rated book, and number two, it needs to be in a universe completely separate from everything else.
Well, so far that's what Wildstorm appears to be. There's only one other story in DC comic news, and that is about the Watchmen, I think, artist, Dave Gibbons. He recently apologized for the misery the Watchmen influenced into comics.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was speaking to Entertainment Weekly recently. Probably has to do with The Watchmen getting the new series on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, quote, "It's amazing to me that after all this time there's still interest in it. Ellen and I thought we'd have a mildly successful series that would have its end and go into the remainder bin, and that would be the end of it. The fact that it's kept on for so long and hasn't been out of print is amazing. If it were to the detriment of comics at all, it might be the grim and gritty approach taken by other people in the business to mean, this is how you must make comics. So there was a decade of grim, gritty, and nihilistic comics, which wasn't what we intended at all. In fact, if we'd done anything after Watchmen, we would have done something like Shazam, something with a lighter, more humorous fable feeling to it rather than something dark and grim. I do apologize to the comic reading public for all that misery," unquote.
Oh God, the '90s were really a horrible time to be a comic reader.
I don't think they were horrible. The dark and gritty was, I think, it was just the kind of things I needed when I was going through those teenage growing pains. It helped me understand a few things. If anything, there were just too many damn pouches during the 90s.
No, it's just the standards for art were way low. I mean, just embarrassingly low. It was it was just strange because Jim Lee was one of the pioneers in the '90s, but then, God, Rob Liefeld came in. Damn, did he ruin things?
I would actually say the opposite is probably true. I think writing was kind of the detriment of comics in the 90s. The art was fine. It was the era it was in. It was just a matter of what was in it.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of stories that were basically about killing characters or giving them enough angst so that they suddenly had to start, painting their faces with blood every time they went out into the public.
Oh yeah, and naming of characters, that got ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, nobody was worse than that.
Blood Strike.
Yeah. Rob Liefeld in his extreme era, man, jeez. I'm glad he's finally grown to the point where he realizes he's not the greatest at actually writing these things. Because he had 3 different teams, I think 4 running at the same time that all had blood somewhere in their title.
He needed some kind of self-awareness because you just can't go on this long in the business being as reviled as he was without some kind of level of self-awareness.
I just really don't think he had it for the longest time. I mean,
No, it took him a while.
Yeah, when he was producing comics, they were very thin palette swaps of other characters in established series.
Yeah. He loved Wolverine's hair. Man, did he love Wolverine's hair.
But I will give him credit, though. With the concept of Youngblood, he was really about 2 decades ahead of his time. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I mean, you've got a government-sanctioned team that were being followed by camera crews and being treated as reality stars. He really was just way ahead of his time on that concept, at the very least. Last up is general comic and convention news, and I don't have any stories about independent comics this week, but I do have 2 stories in regards to conventions. A new Power Rangers panel has been revealed for New York Comic Con.
Okay.
Boom Studios is going to have a number of panels, but only one is going to be Power Rangers focused and is titled Beyond the Grid on Sunday, October 7th. The panel is going to be in room 1A24 from 12:15 to 1:15 p.m. It's going to feature the new creative team on the Power Rangers comics, Marguerite Bennett and Simone DeMeo. Also in the room will be Kyle Higgins and Danielle Di Niculo, who are the prior creative team on the book. Mm-hmm. And Boom Studio senior editor Daphne Pleban, 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 and Hasbro Entertainment and licensing publishing manager Megan Regaria will be there. It sounds like Hasbro is going to be ready to debut some new toys while they're there.
Yay!
I think Hasbro just wants their persistent universe to flourish.
By the time the panel goes on, Power Rangers number 31 will be out, so they may get a new sneak peek as to what the future of the comics will hold.
Uh-huh.
And it sounds like it's going to be an interesting one. It doesn't quite sound like it's going to be the all Power Rangers encompassing thing that that Joanna recently saw Power Morphicon.
Oh yeah,
But,
the Shattered Grid event, and they actually had a couple of the original team reading for their characters. They did excerpts from a few different comic books.
Yeah, that sounds like a trip.
It was amazing. It was like my husband was squirming in his seat, and I was trying to sit still to keep the camera balanced. But it was pretty cool.
Nice.
And I for sure hope that they do some amazing things with the comic from here.
I enjoyed Power Rangers number 25 for what I read, and granted, I didn't read too much going into it. It wasn't hard to pull apart, though.
Mm.
And the only other story I have is in regards to Keystone Comic-Con that goes on in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on Friday, September 14th. At the Keystone Theater, the Philadelphia Convention Center, there's going to be a panel called Valiant 101 and Beyond. It's a panel being held by Valiant Comics, and they plan on giving people a primer as to what's upcoming in their series, including Exo Manowar and brand new titles featuring Faith, Bloodshot, Livewire, and more. As part of the Valiant Visits initiative, they're going to have a representative go to comic book stores throughout the greater Philadelphia area, including Atomic City Comics, Brave New Worlds, Fat Jack's Comic Crypt, that sounds like a place I want to go,
Right?
Amalgam Comics and Coffee House, and Wade's Comic Madness. That's actually kind of cool. They're going to have one of their reps show up.
That's cool.
So, yep, their panel goes down September 14th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The subject of this week is Preacher, Book 1. This is by Vertigo Comics, which is a DC Comics offshoot. This is a creator, I guess you could say a creator-focused tale revolving around a preacher and his literal search for religion.
Well, yeah, that's one way of putting it.
You
I
could
was
more
just-
say that he was searching for God, maybe?
Yeah,
Not
Yes, that
religion?
is the literal sense.
I was just trying to keep it simple going into it.
Okay.
Let's see. It's written by Garth Ennis. The art is by Steve Dillon, who unfortunately has passed away. There's two colors here, Matt Hollingsworth and Pamela Rambo. The letters are by Clem Robbins. And you got a name like Clem, you have to know how to use your fists.
Clem.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Casey, this was your offering in the last few weeks. Why don't you tell us about it?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put this. All right, so I got introduced to Preacher way back when I was working at a comic book shop by a guy named Arthur Martinez. Yes, I'm going to name drop him because he got me into a book that I was like, I'm not touching that. That's clearly, a heavily religious book because it's got Preacher and it's got obviously a reverend on the cover. It's probably just going to be ridiculous, or it's going to be, was it Transmetropolitan, which didn't really resonate with me, even though I know it's well renowned.
Transmetropolitan sounds like a word you use when you're trying to buy a condo in Manhattan.
Well, yeah, but apparently the trendy kids of the '90s like that, and if you don't like that, then you're not hip.
Never was, don't care.
So
Trendy
yeah,
kids of the
basically,
90s didn't read comic books, but anyway.
the story of Preacher is basically all about three people all meeting together, strangely enough, at the weirdest possible moments of all of their lives. You got Tulip O'Hare, Jesse Custer, and Cassidy. The rest of his name is unknown. The book basically starts off with the three of them already having met each other, and it's kind of like a flashback of all the shit that they've just gone through. The first book alone, and I'm kind of paging through it right now as I'm looking at this. You find that Tulip O'Hare tried to become a hitman, and on her first hit, she kind of screwed it up, missed the guy, and shot the other guy's jaw completely off. So, in her effort to escape this botched hit, she jumped into the truck of a complete stranger that she put at gunpoint. This complete stranger is Cassidy. As she gets into the car, she does not see that Cassidy takes a stray bullet directly into his brain pan and still keeps on trucking. At this point, it's not really understood what Cassidy is.
He's Colossus.
The both of them run away from this event to a basically the cosmic stage of Texas. Is the moment that Jesse Custer is preaching to the masses. I think is it in Angelville? Is that what they really call where he's
Annville.
at? But yeah,
Annville.
Right, Annville. That's right. So he's preaching just as he is hit with this strange cosmic entity that has escaped from a place in heaven that you're not really sure what it is, but the angels are really pissed off that it got out.
Am I
and
wrong?
enters.
I just need to interject. Am I wrong, or does no one else in the room see it? I think he's the only one that actually laid eyes on it.
Yeah, he seems to be the only one that sees it, but there's no other indication, and I was wondering that too. There's no any. Yeah, let me try that again.
Well, I mean,
there's
people-
no indication that anybody recognizes it, because then boom happens, and then everything is rubble.
Yeah, I think they reacted
So-
to the door being blown off, but I think they would have noticed if this incandescent meteor hit their local pastor in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they just saw the door being blown off.
Yeah.
Well, it's clear that Jesse is pretty much he's now thoroughly disgusted with the people of Annville. He doesn't want to do what he's doing, but he's doing what he's doing out of a sense of obligation, which we're not going to get into because it has nothing to do with the story that we're looking at. The Angels, in an effort to retrieve this entity that has escaped and gotten into Jesse, have sent an angel to a place called Boot Hill. And in Boot Hill is a coffin in which the Saint of Killers resides. Apparently, the Saint of Killers is this ancient gunman who has a gun that will kill anything. And he himself can withstand any amount of abuse. So it's kind of like he's unleashed a Clint Eastwood Terminator
Yeah, that sounds
against
about right.
yeah, against whoever has Genesis, which is this entity that enters Jesse.
Not to mention John Woo gun physics. He never has to reload anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of touch bases on that. That he's got these revolvers and fired off 13 bullets.
Yeah. 13 bullets,
Yeah,
no
they,
reloading.
you never have to reload. And as a matter of fact, the guns that he uses are these enormous things. I think they're called walkers, and they
Oh,
fire
yeah.
rifle bullets instead of pistol bullets. And
Yeah.
they're about the size of your thigh. The gun is about the size of half of your leg.
Hmm.
And that's what he's trucking. And anything he shoots dies, with the possible exception of Cassidy. But they've already admitted that they kind of made a mistake in the story with that, and they kind of had to retcon that a bit. So yeah, moving on. That's pretty much where we're left off. Jesse has this creature in him. It blows up the church. Tulip sees it and drives up with her strange companion to find that, wow, her ex-boyfriend is amongst the rubble, and scoops him up. And let's see, I think that's where the issue kind of starts to end. That's right. Then we reveal that the entity within him is in fact the progeny of both an angel and a demon.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know how they dated. You know, that couldn't have been as simple as a Romeo and Juliet type thing, and they had to have met each other a couple times. I can't imagine that was just a one, you know, they saw each other, they just had to have sex, went their separate ways, and all this just went down.
I mean,
No, actually,
clearly
they
it was
talk
in
about it.
secret.
That story is actually explained. Apparently, the barriers for heaven and hell are like any demilitarized zone. It's patrolled by both sides that can see each other.
Mhm.
So demons can see angels, angels can see demons, and they usually just go about their business. But this angel and this demon just felt compelled to kind of hang around, and then they're hanging around, turned to talking, and went to fucking. And strangely enough, the person that tried to end it all with murder was the angel. Yeah.
Go figure.
When the demon said, "Hey, you know, we've got something here," he basically comes home like, "Well, no, we don't. And if you keep up this, I'm going to have,
You know,
end."
I wish I could say that's surprising, but so far I've read the entirety of this 350-page book one, and angels are about the only, like, absolute jackasses that are running through it so far.
Yeah.
Because chaotic, I mean, true lawful good, they're kind of assholes. If you've ever met a character in a D&D game, for example, that's true lawful good,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I have to do this because it is the law. There's no empathy, there's no exceptions. It's
That's more true law. That's a variant of it.
I can't say if I have or haven't. I don't spend a lot of time asking people, so what's your alignment in any sort of context?
well, there's an example.
And just to make sure that we covered all of our bases, we do have the background character of Sheriff Root, who is the sheriff of this particular area, kind of, doing his douchebag thing in the background. But he's really just there so you can have somebody to hate, and so that the Saint of Killers has somebody to encounter with, which is where we find the end of this particular issue. Damn. When I read Preacher, I'm going to say this now. Preacher is by far my favorite non-superhero comic of all time. Flat, period. That's the end of it. Every single issue, I felt like I was watching a brand new movie, and it was of equal quality. I never read an issue where I'm like, okay, well, this is filler. This is garbage. Everything mattered. And I'm bringing this up because anytime the Saint of Killers showed up, I knew something truly fucked up was going to happen. And I was never let down. Which is what we go into with the second issue, where our Saint of Killers proceeds to make short work of Root's deputies.
So, question.
Okay.
You as a reader who loves the series, how did you feel about the Saint of Killers killing all these bystanders as they're all police officers?
It's a brutal book. I knew going into it that this was a Vertigo book, so that the lines of heroism and evil were going to be heavily blurred.
Right.
As a reader and as a consumer of pop culture, I do enjoy a good massacre. I have to admit that. Kingsman, the church scene, lovely. The hospital scene from Hard Boiled, lovely. I just love a well choreographed theater of brutality.
Okay. I wasn't prepared for that, so I was like, what is going on? He's supposed to be a saint? Okay.
Yeah,
The
see,
saint of
that's...
assassins and killers.
Right.
Yeah, you're already educated that everybody in the heavenly host is a bastard.
Yeah, but
Everybody.
I mean, you and I have different backgrounds on how we were approaching the storyline, so I'm like, what
Very
is
true.
going on?
To be
That's
fair,
also true. See, I came into this as an atheist, so I already figured that a level of cynicism in this book is probably going to be present. The heavenly host is clearly not going to be the good guys. I already knew that, just because, well, it's a Vertigo book. It's dark. I know my buddy Arthur, and I know what he reads, so I wasn't surprised by it. But I can understand why you, not knowing the kind of book you're getting into, could get a little surprised by that.
Okay. All right. Continue.
Because, I mean, it doesn't stop there. As you can see, Saint of Killers also walked into a bar and blew that the hell up as well.
Sounds like the beginning of a joke. So the Saint Killer walks into a barn. Into a
blows
bar,
it the hell up.
And no one walks out.
Yeah. No, there's something interesting about this book is that the first 2-3 pages, the art looks a little rough. Looks a little ragged. And it seems like the artist found his footing on his style he wanted to use in the middle of the first issue, which is exceedingly rare for a series. You see an artist who will usually mature over 3-4 issues, maybe into issue 6, they know exactly what they're going to do, and then that's the style they stick with. But Dylan changed within 4 pages. The style that you see in the second half of Preacher's Part 1 is the same art style you saw in the Punisher Max series, which Dylan also illustrated. I hesitate to go into this too deeply because Jeremy knows that I will just start explaining the entire series frame by frame if I love something. So I'm going to hand it off to him.
Oh, okay. Jeez, silly me. I thought I got an evening off, but whatever.
Wrong. I will interject, but you know me. I will tear this up. We will spend an hour on this.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out where you were and where I should take this.
We're in the second issue. This is right after I was talking about the fact that the Saint of Killers had started murdering the cops one by one.
Okay, well, in terms of the second issue, it was a lot of exposition via dialogue. To his credit, Ennis spent a lot of time building up these characters in a short amount of time. The sacrifice in doing that, though, means that these guys have got to talk about everything, especially in a series that has... The only exposition it has is to whatever the hell Arseface is trying to say in English. because
Oh God,
you
I
know,
totally glossed over R's face. See,
yeah,
I'm glad about you.
yeah,
Yeah, that was interesting to say
yeah,
the least.
yeah, Arseface is Sheriff Root's teenage son who attempted suicide, and I guess both fortunately and unfortunately, he failed. But he left himself severely scarred, and his jaw is mangled, so everything tends to come out in these garbles that require yellow boxes to understand. And his mouth at the end does look a bit like a puckered anus.
Yeah,
He was coined
and
Arse Face because he ran into Cassidy, who said his face looks like an arse, and unfortunately, this kid doesn't know what that means.
Yeah.
and this is obviously Sheriff Root's lasting embarrassment because he never addresses the boy directly, and if he does, it's with maybe a couple of words.
Well, Sheriff Root definitely thinks himself as a man's man the same way Jackie Gleason did in like Smokey and the Bandit.
Yes.
And at the same time, I don't know. He described his son before the shooting as, the rebellious type, the one that would basically tell you to go F yourself and then go smoke cigarettes somehow. He is not like the one in the TV show that is just this bastion of positivity. I get the feeling that this kid does have some level of brain damage that just makes him. Actually, not brain damage, that's the wrong word. He's very into his dad because this is the last human contact he has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's basically trying to make up for what he did because the kid is fully aware that he fucked up. And I had a moment to think about this, and I think that the reason, Joanna, why you're probably shocked about this is because Steve Dillon's style, and I think what has also persisted until he died, is abrupt violence. He likes to draw violence in the very frame it occurs, and it's done without onomatopoeia. It's done without sound effects and anything. It's just, wow, that guy's jaw just fell off.
Yeah, it was jarring to say the least, but I mean, it had a powerful effect, and I get the style of it, but I didn't know what I was getting into going in, so that was an interesting adjustment. I'm used to like the very classic superhero comics. So
was Dylan prone to rotoscoping?
I don't think so.
I mean, in certain angles, it looks like some of his initial work may have been taken from photographs of people he thought looked like the characters he was trying to portray. It grew from there, obviously. It's not as apparent as like Greg Horn's work or anything like that. I just asked because a lot of his characters look so unique compared to one another. There weren't many that looked alike at all. The only one that looked like he was really a comic book character for comic book character's sake would be the Saint of all killers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something now with Jonah Hex?
A little bit.
Jonah Hex was more comic booky, though.
Yeah.
I know that's not a great description, but Dylan's work is not stereotypically comic book. Even when he was doing things like The Punisher and The Thunderbolts, he didn't look like he was doing a comic book. He looked like he was trying to do something else.
Right, it wasn't stylized.
Mm-hmm.
If you rose-scoped anything, it would have been all the instances of John Wayne.
Probably, but I don't think we ever saw John Wayne's face, just a bunch of profile stuff.
Yeah.
And for those who are listening, John Wayne did not appear in the book. It appears that John Wayne is like the embodiment of Jesse Custer's conscience to himself. Like his own need to do right in a world gone crazy, because they made it apparent in the second half of this book that John Wayne is pretty much what he considers a spirit animal.
That's thinking pretty lofty of themselves.
Well, they reveal later on that the only real contact he had with his dad was up until the age of 4 before he was killed, and his dad took him to John Wayne films. This is pretty much his barometer of right and wrong, in addition to the few platitudes his dad, or he could understand before his dad died.
That's permissible.
Well, he's also Texan, so I think it's pretty understandable.
Don't know what that's like.
The revelation of what Cassidy is to the others, though, had to be a bit jarring when he just tore out that guy's throat in the middle of a bar fight.
Yeah. That was also a shocking thing. Hey, by the way, that guy, he's a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were complaining about him sleeping all day, and then you never see his eyes. And I was thinking it kind of in the back of my mind, and then when that happened, I was like, yep, thought so.
Well,
okay.
A big difference from the TV show here is that, yeah, Cassidy never really takes off with those sunglasses, even when there's something stabbed through them.
Yeah, and he just kind of shrugs it off. I'm like, yeah, he's probably going to go vamp. Yep, did.
The confrontation afterwards, though, I did kind of understand that. It's got to be jarring that one of the few people you trust on Earth turns out to be something you can barely comprehend at this point. Even though, technically, he's not the weirdest thing that's happened to them in the last few days.
True. That's fair.
You know,
It's like, okay, he's a vampire.
Yeah.
We've seen worse.
Although, they did allude that this may have been Genesis speaking through Custer when he disavowed Cassidy in that conversation.
No, that's Jesse.
Really?
That is absolutely Jesse.
Because he seemed to
Yeah,
even
I
shocked
kinda
that
got
he used
that.
that word in dialogue.
Keep in mind that Genesis has absolutely no opinions, has no will, has no memories, is simply just a force. It sought out something with a soul and a will, so it would have that.
Really?
So everything that Jesse says is coming from Jesse.
Really? Because he alluded that he was the voice of Genesis as well as Genesis had its own set of memories.
Well, Genesis has its memories, but it doesn't have any opinions, and it doesn't have a personality. I mean, it remembers where it was born, but it doesn't have, like, it's not going to say, oh, hey, by the way, I'm Genesis. That was never the case. The entire book, anytime Jesse spoke, it was him.
You didn't get that illusion. I mean, the thing had to have some sort of motivation, otherwise it wouldn't have busted loose just to bond with anybody.
Well, the first issue tells you why he did it. He looked for somebody with a soul and a will, because it didn't have one.
But why did it pick him? I mean, if you're looking for somebody with a soul and a will, technically everything on the planet has different levels of that.
It just did. There's a lot of reasons why it did. That speak to the cosmic forces and all this stuff. It basically was just drawn to him.
Okay. I have to ask because that would make it a reason, or that would make its choices and reasoning almost as amorphous as find me 5 teenagers with attitude.
I mean, why did Ganthet find the Green Lantern to replace Hal? Why did he show up at that alleyway? You see, you're asking nerd
Ganthet.
questions that don't really need answers.
Why did Frodo get the one ring? I mean...
Yeah.
Wait,
see,
Ganthet. Ganthet wasn't looking for another ring slinger. That was what's his name, Eben Sur.
No. I'm talking about Ganthet after Emerald Twilight.
Ah, okay. When you say the Green Lantern, you need to be more specific. There's like 10 of them.
Yeah, I was
I
going to
blanked
say
out
there's a
for a
whole
moment.
core of them.
For a minute, I forgot Kyle Rayner's name, and I was trying to play it off.
Yeah, I started to seriously dislike the Saint of All Killers when he decided to have a massacre just because a couple deputies pissed him off.
Well, yeah, the Saint of Killers is not a hero by any stretch of the imagination.
He's not
You
even
are
an
not-
anti-hero. He's just
He's not.
the
Yeah,
decimator
force.
of all.
He is a force.
Like
That's
an angel of death.
Yes, that's exactly what's going on there. As a matter of fact, the guns are actually cast from the sword of the Angel of Death.
Nice! Called it.
That's why it's able to kill anything, which it
Well.
does.
Almost anything.
Oh yeah, well they talk about that. That's actually one of the things that Garthen actually admits. It's like, yeah, we got screwed up on that one.
Unless the bullet just grazed him, but it didn't look like a graze. But anyway.
No, that looked
because
like
every time
that looked like a basketball-sized hole in the middle of his chest.
yeah.
yeah, every time the gun fires, it fires to kill. It never fires to maim. It doesn't ever miss. There's an issue way into the middle of this book where the Senate Killers is facing off against tanks out in the Arizona desert. And
Nice.
he fires his pistol, goes through the tank armor, and kills the tank commander and blows the tank
Ouch.
up.
Because why not? Because explosions.
And just to kind of put in a frame of reference about what the Saint of Killers is made of, Star, which if you've seen the series, you know who Star is, forces the President of the United States to fire a nuke where the Saint of Killers is. And the nuke goes off, and the whole desert is covered in nuclear fire. And then the Saint of Killers just walks right out of the fire and says the immortal lines, "Not enough gun."
Ouch. And everyone who fired that missile promptly soils their pants.
Yeah. Saint of Killers absolutely will not stop. He is the Terminator aspect of this book. All you can do is try to control where he's going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, towards the end of the first story arc here, Sheriff Root finally has a drop on Jesse Custer and won't allow him to use his divine power to make him do what he commands. And
Right.
it becomes more and more apparent that Tulip has a problem actually pulling the trigger. She's had a gun for a while, and she doesn't really, even though she has the drop on a few different people, she never seems to be able to actually do anything about it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm dribbling my words. When she pulls out the gun and shows it to Jesse for the first time, he's completely flabbergasted that she has it. It was a secret that she was trying to keep from him. You know, what she was trying to do with her life, and the fact that she had this gigantic hand cannon in her purse.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't actually shoot anybody until the third story arc, and even that person was pretty much bleeding from a massive head wound anyway.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you don't count the guy whose jaw got blown off accidentally.
Yeah, she totally missed.
Yeah, not the target. And that guy technically didn't die either, but he looked pretty humiliated. Actually, that guy looked way too calm for that thing dangling off the bottom of his skull there.
Yeah,
I think
called shock. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we're still creeping through issue 3. We got the feds talking to the sheriff dealing with his deformed son, and
Well, issue 3
that's
is...
when...
I'm sorry, I was going to say issue 3 has a lot going on in it, but most of it's dialogue.
Yeah, it's all heavy dialogue. The characters are basically trying to reintroduce themselves to each other, and Cassie runs into the slaughtered cops, and, of course, the slaughtered the bar people, and that's when Santa Killers puts one through him, making him the only character in the entire book to survive a shot.
Well, with an asterisk anyway. It's about the same way Barry Bonds has a home run record.
You know what? That is probably the best way to put that. Is definitely with an asterisk.
The fourth issue, though, when all these characters come together into one place after they've been apart for a little while, that was almost jumbled.
Yeah.
A bit. You're introduced to the concept that Jesse Custer worshipped John Wayne to a level where John Wayne was his
imaginary friend.
Exactly.
That's sad.
There's much worse to
Texas.
have by the way of imaginary friends, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Custer really was, he had his own levels of toxic masculinity back before that was actually a word. He was a little too much testosterone for his own good, more than once.
I mean, Texan?
Yeah.
Actually, I think for the time he was made in, he was actually a pretty progressive character, realistically.
He was, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, he had a cigarette letterhead, "Fuck communism," written on it.
Yeah.
And he loved John Wayne.
Well, like earlier in the story, he's progressive with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite scenes in the fourth issue is when Cassidy, having recovered from the bullet, tries to save his friend Jesse by ramming the Saint with a truck. And you see the Saint doesn't even move, and the truck wraps around him practically while Cassie is launched out of it and landing next to Jesse.
Man, he's Superman,
And says,
that
"Cheer
truck.
up, preacher man, you're rescued, asshole."
Yeah,
Some of the dialogue here is pretty good. I like some
Yes.
of the one-liners.
it was an impressive scene, though, because unlike a lot of other scenes that involve, automobiles hitting other characters, he doesn't register that anything even happened. I mean, the
absolutely.
Saint of all
It's
killers just
immovable.
doesn't move. It doesn't even look like it affected the wind blowing his duster. I mean, geez.
At this point, it's pretty clear that it's impossible to. He's practically the essence of unflappable.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make him look stupid by pushing him over. You can't shoot him down. Nothing stops him.
It was almost anticlimactic, though, to find out that that Custer's divine power actually works on the Saint.
Well, I mean, it had to, or the series was going to be a lot shorter.
I guess. I mean, granted, I watched the series before I read the book, so I thought it was less complicated than that. I didn't think anything worked on the Saint.
Yes, strangely enough, the Saint in the comic is a lot more hardcore than the Saint in the TV series.
Well, I would find that pretty easy to believe just because there's so many limits on what an actor can do without massive amounts of computers.
Yeah, and right when the Saint actually realizes that he can't resist that essence, that pissed him off.
Yeah.
And that's when he got into the preacher's face and told him, I'm going to kill you.
When the Saint orders down the Angel to talk to Jesse Custer, though, that was a nice kind of double standard moment where he first appears as the stereotypical vision of a very statuesque person with long hair and wings. Jesse just tells him to cut the shit, and all of a sudden you just see this kind of wispy dude with this ugly shaved haircut.
Yes. And that's when the exposition really starts happening, when you start to find out that right as soon as Genesis escaped from where he was, God quit.
Mm-hmm.
He just walked away, left the throne of heaven by its all lonesome, and took off. And that's what this guy was really trying to hide. But yeah, and
was it during the escape, or I thought it was during Genesis or after Genesis's conception that he quit suddenly?
It might be. My memory on that, the timing of when it happens, is a little fuzzy, because I mean, shit, I really read this for the first time in 20 years.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, these pages actually set the tone for what's going to happen for the next 66 issues, 4 specials, and a couple of backup stories. And it's going to be all about, well, shit, God's got something to answer for. You just can't walk away from your creation like this. You're going to answer for this. And that's everything, and that's only what Jesse focuses on for the rest of the story.
Okay. The the unfortunate end here, Sheriff Root, Jesse tells him to go F himself, and he literally severed his own penis and shoved it up his own colon.
Yes, so much so that when EMS shows up there,
they don't think they can take it out.
Yeah, and then he convinces his son, for the first time addressing him directly, tells him, "Bring me my gun belt." And Arseface, losing his shit, thinking he's having a moment here with his son, with his father. "Whatever you say, these are the first words you said to me since I shot myself. Things are changing. It's a new beginning." And then Sheriff Root offs himself.
Yeah, that was dark. A lot.
Well, I mean, if there was toxic masculinity in this book, Sheriff Root definitely embodied it during the first story arc.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure. I didn't like him at all.
He was really a piece of shit.
And
then the 2 angels that were supposed to watch over Genesis are banished to Earth. You see hints of the future storylines, like Arseface proclaiming his supervillain status of becoming Arseface, which is just hilarious as it continues. You see a scene in San Francisco. I wish I could elaborate on a little bit more. And then, of course, you see the IV bag of Grandma in the Louisiana-Texas borderline.
Yeah.
And then the first line from Hair Star.
Yeah, I figured that's who that was at the end there.
Yeah. And then we're brought back right to the beginning. And it seems almost like that these last pages were actually part of the first batch that Dylan drew, because the old drawing style comes back in a couple of the ways that he draws Cassie and the way he draws the Saint in the background.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, people keep forgetting that comic books from conception to publishing usually take about 6 months to produce.
Yeah.
So he probably worked on a section of it just as a pitch to Vertigo, and when they had the bookends as far as what happened at the beginning and end of the diner scenes, that's probably when Vertigo said, "Okay, we're interested to see what you got," so they started to produce issues, around these scenes.
And at the end, as they're walking into the diner, the very diner that they started the whole storyline with, Jesse has a feeling that John Wayne appears out of nowhere and throws him a big shit-eating grin, and I turn around and throw it right back. And
God, I wish I had that kind of relationship.
That's where this particular arc ends.
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of relationship with my imaginary friends.
Well, maybe you're just not a good friend to them.
Well, my friends aren't quite John Wayne. They tend to be a little bit more ridiculous than that. But whatever.
But you wanna take the reins on the review on this one first, Jeremy?
No, I'll defer to Joanna on that.
Go fish.
Jesse, you're up.
Everyone says nod it and touch their noses.
I'm doing it.
Jesse, you're up.
It's not. This is actually the second time I've read this book, courtesy of Jeremy.
Hardy.
But I was meddling the first time I read it. I'm still meddling now. I'm a bit more experienced with critique now. I
Mhm.
say it's not. This isn't a story not for me.
Okay.
But I only started to enjoy this right as the story kind of wrapped itself up. And I said, "Oh God, thank God it's over."
Okay.
But it's well paced, well written in most places. I had difficulty when they're enunciating their accents
Mhm.
in the dialogue. That was kind of difficult for me to handle. But again, yeah, it's not a story, not for me.
Okay. You got to give it a number though.
Uh, 5.
All right. Joanna.
All right. Well, this wasn't one of my favorites. I'm sorry, Casey.
That's okay.
You can cry later.
Crying now.
Wow.
Well, good. Save yourself the time. So artwork was a little simplistic for my taste. It was gritty, and I'm sure it goes with the theme of what it was trying to, I don't know, exemplify.
That's why I
Storyline.
didn't critique much on that.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine. It wasn't my favorite genre. I mean, it was a little abrupt in some scenes where I'm just like, what is going on here? What have I stepped into? I don't like the gratuitous violence. I mean, if there's a fight, if there's collateral damage, okay, but just not my flavor. There were some good one-liners, some witty writing, and I can give them that. But not my favorite. I would probably give it a 4.
Okay. I guess I will go next. I applauded how high everybody shot for this one. I don't think they quite achieved it, but they went a serious amount of the way. Dylan's art is not everyone's cup of tea, but he managed to make everybody unique and distinct and easy to tell apart, which is something some artists really struggle with for some reason. Ennis, I know he tends to wear his heart on his sleeve in his writing, and it was very apparent here. He's very much an atheist. He has said so in every single interview I've read about him. And he doesn't shy away from things, which is also a big strength here. I am like the others in that I'm not into gratuitous violence, and this was not a book I would have read even in my teenage years because I was one of those dopey people who actually listened to his parents. Sorry, but it's true.
Lame.
Yeah, totally. At the same time, though, it's not entirely my thing, but I just had to applaud the originality of it and how he shot for the stars. So I would give this a 7.
Oh.
I guess that leaves it to me.
Yep.
The fanboy.
Oh, yeah.
I think the simplistic style is not for some. Is definitely not a typical comic book, comic art style, and you can actually see that during a comic arc involving Bullseye and the Punisher that Dylan drew late in his career. That it worked because there was a high level of violence in it, and that's what Dylan really excels in, as well as his simplistic art style, is that he can draw violence in extraordinarily shocking ways. I don't know if it goes on gratuitous, but it is graphic. It's the very definition of graphic.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely enjoy subversive stories like this. I enjoy stories that take what should be taboo and untouchable and just takes all the bullshit away and just points at it for what it is. And that's what this story kind of felt like to me. I mean, of course, I am an atheist. I will say that now. But in this universe, God exists. Faith exists. Christianity is a real thing. But what if the person that's supposed to be the high almighty bugs out? What do you do? And what do you do when you have the power to actually find out, hey, what's up? And
That's when you
really
cross the Rainbow Bridge and fight the Midgard Serpent.
And that's kind of what Jesse ends up doing, for all intents and purposes. The art style works because everybody has a unique face. The minute you see them, you know exactly who that is. Okay, that flat, broad nose and that small mouth, that's Sheriff Root. He's got that weird, mangled face. Jesse has kind of a long head with his little kind of Jerry curl happening at the very top of his hair. Cassie's got that wrinkled Keith Richards look with the red sunglasses. Everybody has a very distinct look that's, even when drawn very small and at a distance, you know exactly who they are.
Mhm.
I do enjoy a healthy amount of violence in my story. I will freely admit that. And when I read this, I was shocked by it. And just to encounter something that I was shocked by was a new sensation. I knew I was definitely in for something really interesting. And while I can't rate this on the storylines that come, I can only really rate this on the 4 issues that we read. I wish that I could give it the Spinal Tap, but I can't, so I'm going to give this a 10.
I was going to say he either means an 11 or he means a very long needle. I don't know which is weirder. All right.
This is, as far as I'm concerned, the gold standard of comic book writing.
All right. Well, next week was Joanna's haul. She wants to read the first 6 issues of Xena Warrior Princess.
Oh, yes.
Wow, she's excited all of a sudden.
I'm going to read it for the 3rd time.
The
Just
third
to
time.
brush up on it and have lots to say about it.
All right. Well, this is going to be the series by Dynamite Comics. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope things go well, and I hope we are able to get those quotes expunged from all the books that are questionable. Have a great one, everybody, and be sure to tune in next week. Thank you very much. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
Casey.
And Jesse.
The Preacher himself. Thank you very much. Have a great one. Wow, he won't disavow it. That's kind of cool.